Welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. My name is Kay Cote, and I'm your host on today's episode. Today, I have Brett Walker, CEO of Electroninks, with me as my guest. We're going to be learning about his business, his journey to business ownership, best practices he's learned along the way, as well as challenges that he has faced to give you that inside look to what it's like and to operate a business. If this is your first time on our channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notified when we drop episodes like this. Welcome, Brett. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. Well, before we dive into all things business, feel free to share a little bit about yourself.
I'm Brett Walker, CEO and co-founder of Electroninks. I've been running the company now since 2013. So for a little while, started it out of grad school, so moved from Illinois down here. I was originally born in Killeen, raised in Oklahoma, educated everywhere else, and then came back down when the opportunity arose. That's sort of everything as far as how it started in a nutshell.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, I'm really excited to dive into more about the business and, what really sparked that inspiration to get into business and why electronics?
My PhD research resulted in quite a lot of commercial interest. I had done some small entrepreneurial things in the past, and it seemed like a opportunity to where I sort of owned all the IP. I had access to it, and it seemed like a really good opportunity to get started. That's where it started there out of the University of Illinois, and then, like I said, within a couple of years of starting it, moved it down to Austin, Texas.
Oh, very cool. And I'm also from the kind of the Midwest, and I totally know the cold winters up there. So,
I
uh,
honestly missed 4 real seasons. I will say, even though like I've spent a lot of time in Texas and Oklahoma, I don't mind a little bit of snow here and there. It's when it's 110 degrees in August, I question a lot of my life choices. So, so yeah.
well, that is great. Well, I'm excited to dive in now. Okay, so tell me a little bit about electronics. Like, what's the company do?
Primarily we're an advanced materials company. So we make metallization products primarily for back-end semiconductor packaging. We do. That's our really our core business. And so those are like silver, copper, gold, platinum, thin film products for a number of different applications. We do have a small consumer product line called Circuit Scribe. So it's a STEM education product. So we have our own non-toxic conductive ink that we put into rollerball pins so you can make circuit prototypes as easily as sketching on a piece of paper. But really the primary focus of the business is our advanced materials, advanced metallization products.
Okay, so primarily like a B2C, no, B2B.
That's correct.
Oh,
Correct.
okay, great. Well, I'd love to learn about the company, kind of like the team that you're working on. I'm sure you have a team that's supporting this. How many team members do you have currently, and what's your like team culture like?
Yeah, so we have just under 50 people. The majority of them are here in Austin, Texas. We do have a satellite facility located outside of Taipei in Taiwan. That's where most of the semiconductor packaging industry is, frankly. Ironically, if literally we made every single chip ever produced here in the United States, we almost have zero infrastructure in the United States for semiconductor packaging, so it still have to get shipped overseas to actually package it in a format where you get it in your devices, basically. So we obviously have a infrastructural footprint over there, and I would say culture is it's very much I hire adults to act like adults. Definitely not micromanagement. We expect to hire competent people to sort of be able to take on projects, interact with customers, and be able to bring things to fruition. In an industry like this, we expect our employees to be contributors and not constantly be required to sort of be told what to do, et cetera. Not that there isn't an organizational structure around that, obviously, but we definitely want sort of self-motivated individuals. That's a definite internally.
Mm. That makes a lot of sense, especially with something of like what you're working on. And, looking at your ideal clients, if I were to say find you online, walk through your doors, how would I know I'd be a great fit for you?
I mean, so generally we work a lot in the semiconductor packaging space. So if you're in sort of the semiconductor supply chain ecosystem, that's sort of generally where we primarily operate. We also do quite a bit of DoD business as well, as since we do sort of thin film metallization providers and sort of novel circuitry for different DoD applications. So we do quite a bit of work with the U.S. government as well. But yeah, I would say most of our customers sort of know what they're looking for. I'll put it that way.
Definitely. So like that probably affects how you do your marketing. Like how does your marketing look, or are you more word of mouth, or kind of like what's that look like for you?
Yeah, no, we do some press releases. We do have a marketing group that we retained around that as well. So it's more along like key results or key application wins that we've achieved that sort of allow us to advertise sort of where we fit in the ecosystem.
Oh, very cool. And looking at your like your journey in business so far, what was something that you were maybe challenged with earlier on in your business that you overcame, and how did you do it?
I mean, I would say always when it comes to business, and I would say this probably rings true whether or not you're small, medium, or large, it's always people. People are both the most important part and the most challenging part of it. So when you have a small business, those first few hires really make a huge impact to what your company is going to look like over the next several years. So taking your time, understanding and getting to know who those potential hires are going to be, and then sort of prudently hiring people that really show promise. While that takes a lot of time, there's no such, in my opinion, there's no such thing as taking too much time doing that because that becomes very important and sort of sets the foundation for your business.
Definitely. That makes so much sense. I think that's a golden nugget of this conversation is looking at there are so many, business owners that are listening to this and maybe making their first hire or a couple of first hires. And so how has that how has that experience of hiring shaped how you've grown as a business leader?
Yeah, I mean, I really view hiring as a two-way street. I think it's really the sort of internal team's responsibility to make sure they're hiring correctly. But then it's really sort of that matchup and a relationship of sort of open communication, understanding where people really want to be, what their goals are. And even if they seem like a good fit now, if it's not really where the potential your potential coworker slash colleague wants to be, maybe it's not a good fit. And so it's really having a really honest understanding of where people want to go and where they see themselves as sort of seeing what makes the most sense. Where I would say earlier on, where, is the first handful to 10 employees, obviously there's a lot of, as they call it, multiple hat wearing. So you want someone who's more flexible, can take on new responsibilities and new duties relatively quickly. Whereas the organization has matured, it's more of a cleanly defined role. And I would say, well, there's always a little bit of bleed over, and in a smaller company, it's less of, responsibility changing, more of understanding exactly what you're supposed to be doing and just executing on that. So there's definitely sort of an evolution of what that profile looks like as the business grows.
Oh, definitely. Well, that also leads perfectly into my next question, which is, do you currently have any emerging leaders on your team?
Oh yeah, no, the way we see leaders is people who sort of take on product lines, and then the more and more you engage with the actual customer that's using the product and sort of evolve that product into actual application, that's the sort of win. So we definitely give coworkers the opportunity to engage with the actual people using the product. It's not like sort of this segregated hierarchy where it's all separated out. To me, there's nothing more rewarding than working on something and then seeing like an actual customer use it. So the more integrated you come in that process, I think that it's a win-win. Not only do you grow in your career, but it also means the customer can adopt it more readily because the person who they're talking to is the one who works with the product day in, day out and sort of knows the ins and outs of how to use it. So that's sort of how we handle it internally.
Definitely. And looking at how your customers are responding to your products, how do you see the business moving forward, say in the next 6 months or so? Like, do you see anything are you pivoting, or are you kind of staying steady, or kind of like what's your growth trajectory right now?
Yeah, I mean, now that we really have a very solid product line in back-end packaging, we view there's a number of application spaces we fit in there. So we view as really sort of staying that overarching course there in back-end semiconductor packaging and starting to displace some of those incumbent technologies. So I really view it as a growth profile in that. Much there's a much closer look now, I would say, domestically as far as you know where our dollars are exported to and where our products come from. And so I think that's been nothing but helpful to us as far as understanding that having a domestic supply chain for a lot of our high tech products and not just absolutely outsourcing everything, it might be a good strategy versus having all that expertise. Because even if we design things over here, if we literally outsource absolutely everything, no matter what, there's know-how that gets exported with that. And so, understanding that having a strong domestic supply chain and access to tech for next generation hardware, it makes a lot of sense. So I see that continuing to grow.
Definitely. I feel like a lot of things are kind of coming back domestic now. We're seeing a lot more growth in domestic, either production or just like, American made as much as possible, I'm seeing. And so that's really cool. And so you're global. You're out, you're shipping out to different countries for product usage as well, or is it all?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
that's
So, to my point originally, like most packaging happens in Taiwan and other areas of the world, and specifically in the APAC region. Period.
Mhm.
Very little of that happens domestically, unless it's like DoD oriented. Obviously, DoD has much stricter
Yeah.
supply chain conventions. So, we do some work domestically with that, but I would say the vast majority of packaging work does happen overseas currently.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good to know too. And let's kind of like take it even wider. Like, where do you want the company to go in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a number of really exciting technologies that we're seeing real adoption now on the back end packaging side. And I think we're going to see that grow as a lot of incumbent technologies start to get phased out due to environmental concerns or just general infrastructural concerns. Where we have a
Mm.
number of value propositions like electrolytically plated copper. We see a significant play displacing that for us, which is a huge industry use case right now, but is also very much in the crosshairs from a environmental footprint and just infrastructure footprint. So continuing to do more efficient metal deposition for us is going to be continue to growing. But we have a large market swath in front of us to continue to sort of chew away at here.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now, do you see your team expanding through this growth, or do you kind of want to keep it around what it is currently?
So that's an interesting question because each time I get asked that through various stages of the business, I'm like, oh, we're about the right size, and then we inevitably would grow a little bit because if you'd asked me when we were 20 to 30, I'd say, oh, this is about the right size, and then now we're 30 to 40, and then well, sorry, now we're actually 40 to 50,
Hmm.
and I would say I could see us expanding somewhat from here as far as getting a more robust sales and marketing team put in place. We have a few key people that are great, but I think putting some more robust infrastructure in around that, now that we truly have some compelling technology and sort of use cases for our product, I think uh, getting a more robust sales force in place is starting to make sense.
Definitely. It's crazy how business it just starts to do that. It's like, oh my gosh, we're growing. Well, then it's like then you need bodies in the office, you need more brain power. It just makes so much sense, especially as a business owner. And now kind of looking at what you're working on, what you're growing. I like to share a transparent look to what it is really like to own a business. And that comes with the bumps in the road as well. So what is something you're currently challenged with that you're working through?
I mean, anytime you work with larger customer integrations, especially in semiconductor, like it's not just sort of a report card of checklists you have to pass. It's all sorts of reliability tests and everything else, and then supply chain reliability and supply chain audits. So all that sort of like kind of a never-ending cycle. And due to the fact that most of that occurs in APAC, you're never really off because there's always going to be some questions to ask for whenever that side of the world is awake and you're trying to sleep. So it's just sort of there's always an on-call aspect to it of If you're truly accountable for the product, there's no such thing as getting that answer too quickly. There's a balance to be had, obviously. You can't constantly be burning the candle at both ends, but there's a level of responsiveness that's expected that needs to be maintained.
That is true. Now, how are you kind of like navigating that? Is that like a CRM that helps with that, or do you have?
I mean, we do have a CRM. We fully integrated over the past couple of years a full ERP for the business as well, which has sort of helped with a lot of automation of the paperwork and process flow of how our customer intake works and sampling process, and then ultimately materials transfer for material sales, et cetera. But then as we've grown, we've also been able to get more key managers in place as well. That's helps buffer that. But I mean, there's no magic answer for that, but yes, we do have a CRM and an ERP and all those things where some budgetary dollars have been burned getting those put in place.
Definitely, that makes a lot of sense. Especially, it sounds like it's a fast-paced business with a lot of juggling, a lot of different aspects of the business for sure.
Yes.
Now, absolutely love the conversation so far. I'd love to dive into our Q&A, our rapid fire Q&A, where I ask you four questions and you answer very top of mind.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Question number one is, what is a key to success for you?
Consistency.
Mm,
It's if you're on the right track, just continue doing the same thing. Now, if you're identifying what you're doing wrong, quick no's are the best, slow no's are the worst. Slow yeses are tolerable,
mm,
because slow yeses mean you're ultimately on the right path. But consistency, but then also diagnosing if you're doing something incorrectly as quickly as possible to correct that. Yeah.
100%. I'm a huge believer in like, if there's a problem, fix it as fast as possible, acknowledge it, and get it on the right path again.
Yep.
Next question is, what is a piece of advice you have for other business owners?
It's more along the lines of what I've always said is like getting a key team of people is critical if you want to grow. If you yeah, I think there's an old saying, if you want to go fast, do it by yourself. If you want to be able to sustain a business, it's going to take a team of people. And if you want to truly grow, you're going to have a team of people. So making those critical hiring decisions and weighing them accordingly, like understanding that it's an important decision makes a lot of sense. So that's always critical for the business.
Definitely. And it could be a book, a podcast, an article, anything that you've read most recently?
I've read Chip Wars. I've read Material World. There's a lot of things about how do we get where we are currently with the semiconductor supply chain. I would honestly, even if you're not a materials person whatsoever, I think just where we are strategically and globally with international competition, I do recommend Chip War. I think that's a 100% worthwhile read. It gives a really good context to why we are where we are, sort of the rise of Intel and sort of the waning of Intel, how TSMC became such a powerhouse in manufacturing, which is why Taiwan is such a strategic asset to the US. I would say that's a good read for pretty much anybody, whether or not you're material centric or not.
I'll take that one down. I'm gonna make a note of that. And the final question is, if you could wave a magic wand and rapidly improve one aspect of your business, what would it be?
Uh, I'm really a tech heavy guy, so R&D is always this. As we're developing new products, there's always sort of this nonstop iterative cycle. If I could wave a magic wand and shorten up that process, which I think anybody would say that, then yes, I would shorten up that process significantly.
Well, I love it. Thank you for the transparency and thank you for sharing on this episode. Before we get to our final question today, how can folks get connected with your business online?
Yeah, just go to electroninks.com. That's Electroninks, electroninks.com. We also have a LinkedIn presence as well, and then you'll see all the contact info there. So and then my email is just Brett. It's just my first name, Brett, at electroninks.com. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Brett, for our final question today. And this one, take all the time you need. What is most inspiring to you today?
I would say what's most inspiring to me today, on sort of like on the business front, is the fact that we are starting to wake up to the fact that there is a level of needed infrastructure here, and I do see a lot of investments happening here that are I think positive. Now, these things don't happen quickly, and building up an infrastructure that we haven't built very actively for the past 20 to 30 years takes some consistency and some commitment. So we'll see how all that plays out. But I do see people are starting to understand how their products are made and where they come from, and having the general population understanding of more of in the weeds, so to speak, of that. I don't think that's ever a bad thing, and can help us make better decisions moving forward.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being a guest on the show and just sharing your insights as a business owner. And I wish you the best of luck with your future endeavors.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.